So today we got a couple things to talk about, especially regarding houses, house prices, inventory, concessions. Man, there's like a lot happening in real estate, and I shared a graph with you guys offline about how, in the entire economy, the real estate section is real estate and related housing is the largest sector of the economy, and number 2 is healthcare.
Yeah,
and,
really?
And so, and they're like number 1 and 2, and the 3 is like a distant third. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, like I know we joke and we have our opinions and hot takes and stuff like that, but when it really comes down to it, these are the things that are really affecting people at the personal level, which is in neighborhoods and cities and counties, states, and then our whole country. So today we're going to talk a lot about that kind of stuff, and we're going to start with the first thing here, which is from Housing Wire. Nearly half of home sellers are offering concessions. So now this is like kind of a snapshot from Housing Wire that like half are. They said half. It's more like 44%. Like that's a huge roundup, by the way, right? Yeah. 44%. That's nearly half Americans. Now this is in January through March, so it is in the recent future. I guess, do you think that if this is the rate we're at now, do you think that is likely to continue into the new year for the rest of the year?
Yes, I believe so. And you know what? Not that I believe so. I know so, because we're starting to see the inventory growing. We're actually currently, I just saw that from Alta's research. It came out. We have 17,000 homes available in our current market.
Wait.
719.
719,000.
719,000 available homes.
Got it. Okay.
And so you guys remember that we were actually last year, we were talking about like, what do you think, how many homes are we going to have the following year? Do you think we're going to reach that million mark where it's going to be the normalcy, And we haven't hit that yet, because mainly we're always hitting between that 10 to 13% of more inventory available on an annual basis. If we have more than that, it's just like something's going on.
Too much, yeah.
It's too much, right? But that's the norm. So the trend has been, we've been following that trend for the last year. And so we're starting to see more availability, more options for home buyers.
Yeah. Brian, how about you? What's happening on the front lines, man?
I feel like it depends where you're at and what city, what place you're at, because I feel that if there's not enough inventory coming, houses are going to stay on the market longer, and that's going to prompt sellers to want to give more credits. But on the other hand, if there's places that there's more inventory, there's a lot more traction, I feel those places are going to ease up on the credits as more inventory rolls out. And I'm hopeful that more inventory will come out this year towards the summer. So
last week, Brian, we were talking about how, for every seller, there's a buyer, and for every buyer demand, that we're looking for someone to sell. And, so I think that we're at this point where people who did not sell before are looking to sell now, because maybe they're sensing that we're at a flattening of the pricing. Yeah. And when this kind of thing comes out, it kind of corroborates what we've been suspecting and what the data is kind of showing us. But again, the data is always open to interpretation as well, because it's localized. What happens in Chula Vista isn't what's happening in all San Diego. What's happening in San Diego isn't what's happening in all of California. Certainly what's happening in California isn't happening in the rest of the country. So you have to kind of like think of that in the layers. But we were talking last week about how, like, this might be a really good time for both parties, because where the pricing is kind of, let's say, stabilized, and in some places kind of coming down a little bit, and then concessions come to play, that gives buyers the opportunity to get in, like we were talking about. And I'm going to use your most recent case study. We just put that out in the market last week, and the Salazar brothers, right? Yeah. They saved how much? $27,920, and that's amazing. Like that, those deals are there, and this kind of thing is likely to continue as sellers are looking for a place to go to. They're looking for a destination, and later in this, I'm going to show you where they're going. Yeah. But this is absolutely likely to continue, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I feel with this information and knowing this, if you're in the current market, I feel don't be afraid to ask for credits or ask for negotiations. And I think usually you're accustomed to you asking for closing cost credits, but what I've recently seen is that these credits are getting very creative as far as, covering my insurance, covering my HOA payments for a couple of months or even a year. So the negotiations are there. You just have to strategically see how they're going to be able to play out in your favor. But I think the options of asking for credits is definitely something that is very empowering right now for buyers. And those opportunities are being shown, as we see right here in this article right now.
Yeah. I like that. Like, I mean, it states here in Seattle, 71.3% of sellers offered concessions in first quarter of 2025. That's just crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You know, it is. You know, I have an actual example. We just closed one in Tennessee. Luckily now we're approved in 47 states, which is phenomenal. But in Tennessee, the purchase price was $715,000, and it is a VA. He was actually stationed here in Imperial Beach and left to Tennessee. Start his new life. You know, I'm close to retirement. That's where I want to be. And so he purchased a home, $715,000, and got 4% seller concessions.
Wow.
That translates
That's
to
a lot.
what?
That's like 28 grand.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So
a little over 28 grand.
Which is cool because he had gone in and put a $7,100 earnest money deposit. He got that back and some.
Dang.
Yeah, because you're able to get up to $500 on top of that,
Yeah.
whatever you put in. You can't make more than that with VA.
Right.
But he got all that money back. And so we're able, just like Brian mentioned, you can have them pay for certain things, right? Like your HOA, or even add more to taxes, because we couldn't eat it all up.
Yeah.
You
Sorry, go ahead.
And
Finish.
so, yeah, that allowed us also to give him an interest rate of 5.75, which was a lot more favorable for him.
Oh, wow.
Which is
That's
phenomenal.
well under 6.
Because they were, you know, the market was doing pretty well at that point in time. So the point being is, take advantage of these times. You know, every state is going to have its different opportunities. The other thing that would happen, this home was a custom home. The value came in at $800,000.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was under market and he got 4% in concessions?
That's correct.
That's
you know?
crazy.
So when I saw those numbers, I'm like, this is great. This is a great buy.
Wow.
You know? So, yeah, these, like Brian said, every state, every city's going to be, you know, it's going to have its own, you know, advantages and disadvantages, et cetera.
Okay, I have a question, right? This is something we talked about last week. So, Will, I know you don't know I'm going to ask this. So, Memo, how prepared was that buyer when he started making offers?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question.
Well prepared. He was already, his decision was already made, so we already had all his information 2 months prior to.
There it is.
Okay,
There it is.
so last week we were talking about how there's these killers out in the market, man, and like that's who if you're a buyer, that's who you're competing against.
Yeah.
You're competing with people who have their crap together, they got the documents in, they're already DU approved, and they're out shopping. So when you get an offer and that realtor that's listing that house got this stack of offers, they're looking at who's most prepared. Sometimes there's a cross qualification involved. So we had a whole talk about this last week. And it was to prove that point. Like the people that are getting in right now, they're well prepared. They're working in advance. They're patient with the process. But when they find the right place, they end up getting the deal, which you're talking about right now. The guy got an under market value, and he got a concession because he was ready. I pretty much figured that was the case.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. This is gonna work out or it's not.
Like to your example, you don't just get pre-approved 1 week for another and then that happens. Now there's a slim chance that it can happen, but most scenarios, it's not going to be like that. I've seen it's a 3, 6, sometimes 9 months, depending on what you're looking for, the price range, the area that you're looking for. So all these things play a part. One of the things I did want to advise, if you're a buyer and you're in that room of, you don't know if you could take that payment on, you don't know if you're going to be able to afford it. Instead of asking for a price reduction, negotiate credits to buy your rate down, pay something down that's going to alleviate monthly payments in the future, but don't ask for that seller to bring down the price, because on the contrary, that might not help you out as much as you think. Buying down the rate or strategically using seller credits could put you in a better monthly payment and in a better position down the line to be able to, get into that property.
Yeah, it's kind of like levers. You can push this one a little bit that way, this one a little bit that way, and maybe you can get the kind of the best of both worlds type of situation. And especially if it's already appraising at that price, then go with that and do the concession part, because you can use that to apply to other things.
Yeah,
so that's super good.
Knowledge is power when applied.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so that's what we want to stick with. And in this case, he put himself in the most favorable position possible, because one, his realtor partner, right? And I say partner because we're all partners in this to try to get our client into what they need, what they want to get into. And so he negotiated very well.
Yeah.
It was a really good negotiation. Then obviously he comes with us, and we're going to get him the lowest rate possible now, because we understand that the sellers are, helping out with this. And so a lot of times people don't understand the sellers put themselves in that position because they want the higher sales comparables in the area still. So if they have a price reduction, they don't offer that, then their property is just going to stay stagnant.
Yeah.
That's when we have to do that real price reduction.
Right.
And so in this case, the seller's like, wait a minute, think my home is probably worth that 800, but I'm willing to take this and give that to get me to that next stage of where I need to be at. So
yeah, and it brings up a good point that there is enough equity for negotiations to make sense. And if you know that information and you're out shopping, utilize that to your advantage.
that's right.
So there's three cool. I'm going to say cool. Man, I'm such a dork. Dang it! I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said I got three cool things. I got 3 pieces of data I want to share real quick. I said it's cool. Dang it! I should. We're not going to cut that out. All right,
nerd.
The first one. 21% of homes sold in Q1 2025 went for less than asking price and include a seller concession. 16.2% involved a price cut and concession, and 9.9% involved a price cut, concession, and a sale price below the initial asking price. So these are all kind of like, I shouldn't say flashing red lights. These are all like indicators of what's actually happening in the market, that if you're a buyer, you can be looking for these things. It's actually happening. And you could argue, oh, well, that's not that statistically significant. Well, I don't know. Tell the 9.9%, 16.2, or 21% of people that it's not. Okay.
No.
So this could be your situation right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on, guys. Next thing here. Well, sorry. Is there anything else on concessions?
No. I think it's a just.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Okay,
Don't
well,
be afraid.
we're moving
That's
on
right.
quickly because we're going to talk about affordability, which is no one's favorite topic.